Welcome to the Hope Warrior Project podcast, where we bring you an extra dose of hope to help you get over the humps of life. I'm Stephanie Martino.
And I'm Lydia Zuniga, and together we are bringing you real stories of hope from real people. We believe by hearing other people's stories of challenge and transformation, we can all gain some hope for ourselves.
So if you've been looking to find and hold on to hope, you're in the right place. Join us on this journey as we all become warriors of hope. Approximately 1 in 7 moms and 1 in 10 dads suffer from postpartum mood disorder. Those statistics in itself were shocking to me. It's not 1 in 70, it's 1 in 7. And the fact that dads can suffer from postpartum mood disorder was also something new for me as well. We're not going to talk about the dads today. We're going to talk about the moms. But I thought I wanted to share that just because I think those statistics are really important for us to understand that this is a very common thing that parents go through. And as with any mental health condition, anything that we're dealing with, the severity can range. It can be very mild to severe, anywhere in between. And it can look different for everyone. And the treatment and recovery approach, there is no silver bullet, one size fits all that works for everyone. So that can also look very different. So we are fortunate today to have our guest, Melissa Todd, that is going to share her experience with severe postpartum anxiety and the things that she went through and how she was able to walk through that journey and become her new version of a beautiful version of herself that she is today. And she'll talk about kind of what that means to her. So Melissa, thank you for joining us today and be willing to share your story with us and with our audience.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. And being a mom of 3 myself, I think that there's a lot of anxiety that just comes with overall becoming a parent. Like as soon as you find out you're going to be a parent, it's like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden you have this whole new like world of worries that could possibly like jump into your head, right? So like just, I feel already like that's overwhelming in itself. And you have 2 children, and this experience happened with your second, correct? So my question is kind of like, what was the big difference? Like how did that experience with the second pregnancy and childbirth differ from the first one?
I think right away it was different in that when we left the hospital, I was tearful. When the nurse started talking about like postpartum depression and things, I was already like pretty tearful, and I wasn't like that with my first. I remember being just like elated and happy and ready to bring him home. And then I had that like overwhelming like sadness for some reason that I couldn't really describe because I was happy too, but it was like I was sad and crying and you know, before we left the hospital. But then a couple weeks later, after the sleep deprivation and things set in, I was obsessive with my thoughts. Like I couldn't stop the what ifs. What if this happens to him? And what if this never happens? Or what if I can't? And what if? And it was like paralyzing to me. I couldn't take care of the baby. I could barely take care of myself. My husband had to make me get up and shower. And if I wasn't in the shower, I was in the bed, just laying there staring out the window because I couldn't get out of my own head. And all of these scenarios that I was going through, like with what if he had some swallowing issues? So like, what if he never talks? What if he never swallows okay? What if he can't eat okay? And it was like consuming me. At times I felt so like hopeless with the way I was feeling, like stuck in my feelings, that it was like I didn't want to live anymore. And that's when my husband, we went to the ER a couple of times, and we really started like thinking, okay, this is not okay. It's pretty severe. So just reaching out for help at that point.
You know, it's interesting, some of the what ifs that you are sharing. What if he doesn't swallow, right? Or, I mean, is that something that's common, or was that kind of like a just out of the blue? Why would you be asking that? Is that kind of part of it? Like it was unfounded what ifs, or was there something that would make you think that would happen?
Well, he had a tongue tie clipping. So he had a tongue tie. He wasn't able to breastfeed very well. So we had that done thinking it would help him to breastfeed, but it didn't. It actually made it worse. So then I was already obsessing over, why can't I just do this breastfeeding thing? Like all these moms do this and I can't. And I was like, no sleep, worried about him not eating right. And then I was like, is he even going to be able to take a bottle now? Because we had this tongue tie clipped. So his like suck at first was very weak. And you have to do all these exercises on their mouth when they're like a 2-week-old baby, and you have to retrain their suck. And it was just too much for me. Like I was like, because I'm a very type A person and I want to know the outcome and I want to know what, how things are going to be. And it was like, I don't know any of those things right now. And it was just like totally spun me over the edge.
Wow. So it's like just exaggerating the possibilities.
Yeah. Right. It was like exaggerated. I mean, because of course you might think, well, hopefully his swallow will most moms would probably be like, it's going to get better. It just is going to take some time. But I was like, it's not going to get better. He's going to be like this forever. He's not going to be able to talk. He's not going to be able to, I mean, it was very like intense.
Yeah, it sounds to me like it's where it goes from that what if, because I think those what ifs, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I had some crazy, still have some crazy ones, but I remember with all of my kids, like always checking if they were still like alive. Like, like it's just, I think it's just like a mom thing. Like you're just like, are you breathing? Like, is everything okay over there? Like you just have this thought in your head that like something can go terribly wrong. And also like, because they also give you a ton of information in the hospital to kind of scare you. They're like, you have, like there's just so many things that can possibly go wrong that you have to like know about.
Right.
And even though they might be rare, it's like better to have the information, I guess. But then it does create a lot of worry and anxiety. But I guess it's different to like just have the thought and be able to like
let it go.
Let it go and be like, okay, yeah, it's a possibility, but I'll deal with it if it ever happens,
right.
Other than obsessing over it and thinking the worst, like you said, like it's not going to get better.
Right. And this was to the point where I couldn't let the thoughts go. So then I was literally just, and I say this, but stuck in my thoughts, like stuck in my head was the way I was describing it to my therapist at the time. Like I can't get out of my head to be a mom, to take a shower, to do those things. And this was at first when it was really bad. So, yeah.
So when we talked to you previously, you had mentioned that you kind of felt during this time that you were never going to be yourself again, like you kind of maybe had lost who you were. So maybe talk a little bit more about how that felt, what you were going through.
Because I was so far from where I was used to being, when something like this happens to you and you're totally not in control of it, up to this happening, I never had any like mental health things happen. And so, I mean, lots of things have happened in our lives. Like my husband has had cancer, my son's had a kidney tumor, but my mind was always on my side in those instances where it was like my cheerleader, and my mind was not on my side. And so I was completely scared that like my brain would not get back to that normalcy of being able to let things go, where you're not stuck in your head all day. And I thought, like, why is this happening to me? And that was so scary, because it's not something you wish on anyone or that you can control. It's just like it happened. And like I told you before, I had to shift from why is this happening to me to this happened and how can I move forward from it. And that took a long time because I was so concerned with like, why did this happen, or why can't I fix myself? And I had to just let that go and realize like, I don't really know totally why it happened, but it did. And I have to just move forward the best that I can.
Yeah. The big question in life, why? Why is this happening? Why? Yeah, I mean, I think we've all asked ourselves that variety of why questions, and it can really drive you nuts, because a lot of times we won't know why. We'll maybe never know why. And so getting to that acceptance, and like you said, how you got to the point where you're like, okay, it happened. Now what? So how did you get to that point? What is it that helped you kind of reframe your thinking to shift that?
Well, we talked about this, and when I was like about 4 months postpartum, was just not really getting anywhere, and had not been able to go back to work, and I was just suffering. I was in my head. I was not living. And I decided, my therapist that I was seeing at the time decided that we needed to do something more drastic. So I went to an inpatient program at a hospital in North Carolina. That's kind of far away, but I found out through Postpartum Support International that they had a perinatal women's unit there that was inpatient. So I did that, and I was there for almost 2 weeks with, they have therapy there. You get, your medications can be adjusted, which I definitely needed. They have not just like psych therapy, but they have recreational therapy, they have art therapy, they work a lot on self-care for the moms. And so that was really good for me as well. I got home and things were great for, I don't know, a month or two. And I thought I was totally better. Like, okay, I can just put this away. Like, pretend it didn't happen. I'm fine. Da, 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 da. But turned out I was still struggling and needed more tweaks to my medication. And I continued in therapy, and I'm still in therapy to this day, just not as often. At one point I was in therapy 2 to 3 times a week, I think. And that was something that was critical. Another thing, I think I told you guys, like, when the times when I felt helpless and like, this is never going to end, I'm never going to be myself again, where I had like the passive, I don't want to live anymore. But one thing that was like major to me personally was my faith in God. And I knew like, that's not something I want to do. I don't want to leave my children without a mother. And I just would pray all the time, like day and night, like, God, help me get through this. I wanted him to just take it away. And I couldn't understand why God isn't just taking this away. Why is this happening? But it's something that like I've had to walk through, and God's been with me every step of the way. But also, like, he gives us resources and people that we can use when we need it. So my medications, my nurse practitioner, my therapist, I feel have all been put in my life for a reason and have helped guide me along this journey. And we also talked about how I had to get over what other people thought of me. That's a major thing when you have to go somewhere inpatient or when you're struggling mentally, because I never had before, and I didn't know what a stigma is that's attached to it, but there is. And I think when it's happening to you, you feel even more distant from the people that maybe haven't gone through it, because it's so hard for them to understand. But I just had to be like, this is what I have to do for me right now, and I have to get better. So that was what I did.
Absolutely.
While you were talking about your faith, it just kind of hit me that, like, and Stephanie, you were saying, like, we were always asking, like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And maybe part of it is because, like, we need to increase our dependence on a higher power, because I notice in myself, at least, that when I start to disconnect from that spiritually, when I start to become too self-reliant, when I start to think I have it all going on and I can handle things, I feel like that's when blow-ups happen. And he reminds me, no. Like, I'm the one in control here, and like, you need me. And like, that's what life is about, is this connection between me and you. So, you know, and they're hard to swallow reminders, I think, sometimes. But I just, you know, for me, because I can relate on that spiritual level of like, when I was in my darkest time, like that's what saved me as well, is just believing that something ultimately is in control, it has my back, and that one day there will be answers that I couldn't possibly understand right now, because I'm a human being, and it's just so much more beyond that, you know. And just thinking big picture, right? Because when we're so trapped, like you said, trapped in your head, it's like all you can see is you, right? All you can see is how you're feeling and how these things are affecting you, and it's like a scary way to think. But then if you open your perspective and think, I'm just one person out of however many are in the world, like how do my problems, how does my life fit into like this overall big picture that God has for this world? And then it's like they don't feel so big anymore, right? Because you're like, well, you know. So,
and it's like the further along I got in therapy, we talked about that, and about how it's important to focus not just on yourself but on others. And one of the big things that's helped me too is focusing more on the things around me. And so like doing other things to get me out of my head was very essential too. So we would go for a hike. We went hiking a lot just because it was like physically I'm exercising, so endorphins, but also I'm physically getting out of my house, out of that usual environment, and I'm like connecting with nature, I'm connecting with my family. It's a way to get out of my head. And so yeah, and also like doing things for other people, putting up, like thinking, how can I make someone else's day better today? That also is a good way, for me anyways, to get out of my head.
Oh yeah, I will say, like, just getting out and I had to force myself sometimes just during the day to go outside and take a walk, and it's amazing what it does to just kind of clear your mind, get you out of whatever, you know, thinking pattern you're in. But real quick, I wanted to share, because I find that, you know, timing sometimes is just really interesting to me. And you were talking about how you kept wondering, like, God, why aren't you just like making this go away, getting me out of this, delivering me from this? Just this morning, I was reading a devotional, and in it, and this just caught my mind, and I wrote it down. I wonder why. It said, sometimes God delivers us from hardships, other times he delivers us through them. And that, I thought, my gosh, that is so true. And we always want to be delivered from them. Like, let me out of this situation, take this away from me, you know. But actually, I'd say probably most of the time it's getting through them and how he delivers us through them. So I thought that was really interesting that I read that this morning, and you made that comment.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. Well, so I mean, you did all this work, right, to get to where you're at today. And I also just really want to commend you. I know that I said it last time we talked, but just like for getting to that point where you were able to like check yourself into even the inpatient program, because I know that must have been scary. I mean, to just completely surrender like your whole life and be like, okay, like I'm at your mercy, like do what you will with me to fix me. Especially like what you were saying is that you could rely on your mind before, and it got you through so many difficult situations in the past, and then all of a sudden like it wasn't working anymore. So, and I think that's a really hard thing, is to like kind of lose trust in yourself. Which I have experienced in my story as well, is like all of a sudden I felt like I couldn't, like, because of where I had gotten myself, I started doubting myself with everything. Because I was like, well, if I got myself here, obviously I was doing everything wrong. And it was so difficult. But then when you're used to being so self-reliant, then to like ask for help is so, I think, hard for so many of us. At least I can speak for myself, and I know for you. So I want to commend you on that. But like, I mean, also not even just asking for help, but doing the work that came with it, like getting yourself outside of the house and turning to faith and all these things. But like, so obviously this was a process. How old is he now?
He's 19 months.
Okay.
So Even at a year postpartum, I still was having lots of ups and downs. And I think one thing I want people to know is like, healing is not linear. I love that saying. And I also love that like everyone's journey is different. So I wanted myself, like I kept putting these things on myself, like, well, I need to be better by this time. And it's been a year, so why am I not better? And I think if I could go back, I would be have a little more grace for myself and just say, like your journey doesn't have to be like so-and-so's or anything, just giving myself more grace.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing that I just remembered of was like the whole even if. Can you just quickly talk about that? Because I love that.
So my therapist, in the midst of all these what ifs, which she has seen other people deal with too, with anxiety, and she would say, okay, what if it does happen? Or, I go, what? Why are you why would you challenge me to think that? And she goes, well, because you need to think that even if it happens, you're going to be able to get through it. And I was like, well, I guess you're right. Like, what's my other option? I'm not giving up. So you're right. And so what was one? It was, okay, even if, because one of my big things was, I'm afraid I'm not going to be who I was before. And she kept telling me, but you're not. And I was like, but don't say that. I don't like that answer. So it's like, even if I'm not going to, even if I'm not exactly who I was before, I can be a new version of myself that's better and that's grown from all of this. And I think that's what's happening. So that's good. There were lots of what ifs that I have had to change into even if all the time. And I think that's, Lydia was saying, that's something practical that you can use too, that anyone can use.
Well, yeah, because I think that when we think what ifs, like it's like this ominous, like we can't really like picture it, but we know it's bad. And our mind like makes it out so much worse than maybe it might somehow possibly be. And it's like toxic way of thinking. And actually, like, it reminded me, because I don't even remember what movie it was, but a while back I watched a movie, and like that was something that the couple would do. Like whenever they had what ifs, they would like come up with worst case scenario, and they would just like say it out loud, like, well, then this would happen and this would happen and this, and then they'd be like, okay, like I think I can handle that. Like, because once you like put like a scenario in front of yourself, and then also like refocus on what you would still be excited about, what you would still be grateful for, even if that happened, then it's like just a completely different way of thinking, and it's not so like unknown.
Not so scary.
And not so scary, right?
The fear from it.
And because all of us have handled things in our lives that we never thought we would face, and somehow we got through it, right? But on the other side of it, we would have been like, whoa, like no way, never. But like humans are resilient and adaptable, and I don't know, that's why we do this, because we think it's pretty incredible to hear like how people got through these things, because it gives us hope, because we know that there's more coming our way too, it's life. So, but awesome. So how is this showing up now? Like what are you working on now? Like how is this new life showing up for you?
I think now I have more empathy for others who I either know are struggling or may be struggling. I feel more patient. I used to have a pretty short fuse, and now I'm just like, meh, because I feel like a lot of things that used to bother me, it's like really insignificant now compared to what I've gone through. So I don't know, I feel like a lot more relaxed, definitely less judgmental. I don't think I was purposefully judgmental before of people with depression, anxiety, things like that. But in my mind, I didn't understand it because I hadn't been through it. So I thought, like, why would somebody need to be on meds for depression? I mean, if you're just feeling sad, can't you do something to make you feel happy? And then like, I didn't understand that it's truly like a chemical imbalance in the brain. And and this is what I told my husband many times, and he totally got it, and he was so supportive. But it was like, of all people, the control freak that I am, if I could fix this myself, it would be fixed. So like that tells you it's truly like an imbalance that is not in the person's control. And I totally understand that now. So that's changed for me. I've accepted that life experiences change you. I don't think I would want to go back to that person that I was. I think that there's beauty in what has happened, a lot of, bad, but I can think back on it now and think, okay, I went through this for a reason. And like, I think I will continue to grow from it and hopefully be able to help other women in the process too. Finally living again. Yeah.
Yeah. And just through this interview, like it shows your heart for wanting to help, other people, because, it's not an easy thing to talk about or to be vulnerable about and share. But you never know, like, who's going to hear it. And, the three of us being spiritual and having that faith, like, I know that we know it'll make it to somebody that it will help. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I believe that already, someone has listened to this and it's done something for them. I mean, just going back to those statistics I shared at the beginning, if this is affecting 1 in 7 moms, I mean, that's just talking about postpartum mood disorders. What about just in general, every other kind of depression, anxiety, everything, and a lot of what you've said today is very applicable across the board. It's not just for people who maybe have suffered from postpartum type mood conditions, but all of us. So no doubt that anyone listening has already been able to take something away for themselves. So on that note, I mean, if someone really connected with what you're saying, I mean, maybe they're going through a lot of what you went through, and maybe you're feeling like, they're not sure who to talk to. Maybe they're not at that point where they can say that they don't care what people think, if they wanted to reach out to you, knowing that you've been through it, you understand, you're not going to be judgmental. Is there a way that they could connect with you?
Sure. My email address, and it is M as in Melissa, H as in Hope, because that's my middle name, Todd, TODD @hotmail.com. So mhtodd@hotmail.com.
I love your middle name.
How did you not know that? At least I didn't know that. Did you know that, Stephanie?
She sent me a message the other day saying that, and I was like, how amazing. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, just I love that.
It is. Yeah.
We love hope.
We were just wondering, like, what was the one takeaway that you wanted people to really remember from this interview, or to hold on to for future use?
I think it depends on who you're talking about. So if you're talking about people that don't have experience with postpartum mood disorders, I would say you probably will, because it's 1 in 7 women. So you're going to know a mom, it's going to be your sister, it's going to be your best friend, it's going to be someone that is going through it. And my husband and I talked about this, and we would say that I would challenge you to put aside your expectations and your judgments and educate yourself on it, and provide as much empathy and support as you possibly can. Just be there for that person, and don't put expectations on them, or what you think they should be doing, because they're doing the best they can. And I think if you're asking from a perspective of someone that's going through it, reach out for help. There is help, and you have to use all the supports available sometimes. Like, I had my friends, my family, I had my nurse practitioner, my therapist, I had an inpatient program. It can be scary because it's a lot of work to do, but in order to get through it, sometimes you have to reach out for the help that's available.
Exactly. Well, and just real quick, in case someone wanted to reach out for that specific help, you had mentioned the place that you worked with. Was it Postpartum Support International?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they have like a helpline you can call, and they have specific people in each state that are, and I actually met with one. We sat down, I told her my story. She connected me with my therapist in the area that is postpartum trained, my nurse practitioner that has postpartum training. So because it's a specific type of anxiety and depression, and it's perinatal, there are practitioners out there that take courses and take get credits and stuff in that specifically. So they have training and they know how to deal with moms specifically. So I think if you are struggling and you don't want to talk to me, reach out to Postpartum Support International, and they can get you in touch with somebody in your area that's local that can help you with your resources there.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's a really good resource for people to know exists, because I don't know that everybody knows that that's out there. So Thank you for sharing, and thank you again for sharing your story. I'm always intrigued and in awe at the differences and the similarities of things that people go through. There's always a thread, I feel like, that kind of goes through all the stories that we hear, but then there's those specific situations and things that people did that really helped them. And just hearing your story, connecting with some of the things that you were feeling, the what ifs, the whys, and being able to shift that into even if, I think is extremely powerful. The very first time you told that to us, I mean, that hit me significantly. And I've actually been already using that. I mean, ever since I heard that from you, I've been using that. I'm like, all right, even if it's okay. What if this happens? That's okay, even if. So thank you. And thank you for being willing to be a connection for anyone that wants to reach out and maybe get some additional one-on-one talking and support. So
you're welcome. Thank you guys for having me. I feel honored, and I'm very appreciative to be able to talk about it. Something that I feel pretty passionately about now. So.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
To all you Hope Warriors out there, thank you for joining us today to hear another incredible story.
We hope that you are encouraged and are taking away something positive for your own life. If you want to hear more stories like the one today, be sure to subscribe to this podcast.
And don't forget to tell your friends about it, because we can all use some extra hope in our lives.